Hey everybody, Edo here, and for this week's League video, I wanted to get to mechanics and theme. I did the mechanics, dynamics, aesthetics video, but I wanted to come back to what is more common for board gaming lingo, which is mechanics and theme. But rather than just talk about, do you start with theme or do you start with mechanics, I really wanted to focus in on how theme works and functions with mechanics to serve the game. And there's no one better at theme than Seth Johnson, who is just the go-to guy for me whenever I'm working on a design problem and has anything to do with theme, which is awesome, often. So,
well, we were talking about it recently, and looking back deep into history, the very first idea I came up with when we were talking about it is chess.
Yeah.
You know, chess is generally seen as a pretty abstract game, but when you come right down to it at the end, when the king is captured, the game is over. You know, and that's a pretty simple thing to understand that flows from the theme.
Right, and I think it's a really powerful example actually because, again, it's such an abstract game. I mean, you don't think of it as in theme in the way these other games are out here, Mysterium or Steampunk Rally or these heavy theme games. This is really just pawns and knights and bishops, but that idea of when the king goes down, the game's over.
Right.
It's so clear to a person. They're like, oh, like when the king dies or he's killed or whatever, you lose, right? I also think it's an interesting example because the other half of it, which is how the pieces move, the mechanics of, the bishop being diagonal and the rook and the castle, or
why the knight moves in an L.
Yeah, why the knight moves in an L and all that is, you can sort of explain it, but it's not intuitive. It's not like, oh, that's clearly a piece that should move mechanically or diagonally. You need to explain that to somebody. But hey, you lose when the king is captured or killed or whatever. Super clear.
Right.
So we're just going to keep going on. So the next example I wanted to bring up was Zoo Loretto. Right. Now, I actually worked at Blue Fang Games, the makers of the Zoo Tycoon series, so I've spent a lot of time with zoos, and you might not know this, but zoo attendance per year is more than all sporting events combined. Wow. Zoos are a big deal. And in Zoo Loretto, and for these games, we're not necessarily going to pull it all out and put them on the table, but in Zoo Loretto, players are filling their zoo, each individual zoo, and they're filling them with animal tokens, and they're trying to get sets. But the way you get sets is you fill trucks, and players go around filling trucks, and then people pull the trucks from the middle of the board. So there's a sort of push your luck. Do I want that animal? Does somebody else want that animal? And the magic about this game and why it's so much fun and is so easy for so many people is because we all have this cultural context for zoos and zoo animals and what animals are in a zoo and pandas and tigers and camels. When you're evaluating the game state, when you're looking across the board and you see, oh, that guy's going for tigers and that guy's pandas and monkeys, it's really easy to pull it into your head. It's really easy to sort of absorb that game state, making it for a quick and fun play. So there's this sort of cultural baggage or advantage that comes with some of these concepts that you can pull. And sometimes they change. I was talking to Seth about how, when I was growing up, and I think, for many people still, diamonds are jewels and they mean high value. So if you have a piece of gold and a diamond, you're going to say the diamond's more valuable, right?
Right.
And so that's shorthand to the player. That's valuable. What I think is interesting in an age of Minecraft with my kids, when they think about diamonds, they don't necessarily think about high value. They think about strong. Tough.
Yeah.
The best thing you can do is make things with diamonds. So understanding your audience and understanding what their association is, and this also changes. I lived in Japan, and there's all sorts of different cultural meanings for things. So I think Zoo Loretto is a good example of that.
Another example I thought of was the game Falling. And Falling is a fantastic game that's played in real time, where it comes with just a simple deck of cards that's dealt out to the players one card after another. And the theme of the game is that everyone is falling, and the goal is to hit the ground last. And at the bottom of the deck, there are ground cards that are going to come out as cards keep being dealt. In real time, sometimes faster and faster, and you can really viscerally see how many cards are left in the deck, and you can feel them coming out. And it's, it does a great job, even though it's just cards being dealt, of, you feel the pull of gravity, and you see the ground getting closer.
Yeah, and I think this is such a good example because the design supports the theme and the theme supports the design, but there's a certain sense of apprehension and dread and tension that comes from it that the theme really shoves into it. I mean, there's plenty of games where you could be dealing out and making decisions, but that sense of, oh, I'm falling, and that sense of falling is so clear to a person, they push it into the game, and it empowers the mechanics. So this is a really great example.
It's where the theme is really bringing an emotional understanding of mechanics in kind of intuitively and immediately to the player.
Yeah. And actually, that's sort of in contrast, in a way, to Tokaido. I mean, Tokaido's a great game, but in Tokaido, what's so interesting about this game is the core mechanic, which is you're traveling down this path in ancient Japan. Where's the clears? And you get to choose how far you want to go in segments of a line. And what makes it unique and different from a lot of games is it rewards you for not necessarily rushing to the end. And that's sort of counterintuitive to most games. In most games, you're trying to get the furthest, the fastest.
Right.
And so I don't know where Bausa, like, whether he started with the theme or the mechanic or what his approach is, but solving that problem for your game or for your player, thinking about how you can, there's this sort of schism, there's this gap with, why am I trying not to win? Like, that's weird. I want to sort of go faster. And by making it beautiful, by making it serene, by making it this sort of take the journey, take your time, absorb the word, life lessons approach of this theme, it helps people enjoy that dynamic. Because for most, it's weird. It's awkward, and it's not what they expect. But when you're like, no, go to the onsen, enjoy it, eat the food, do these things that you are intended to
take in the sights,
to savor it, right? It makes it escalates this game to a rock star hit that everyone else.
Yeah, it's great. The next game that I brought is actually almost the exact opposite in terms of the theme, and that's Formula D, where you want to go as fast as possible. You want to be the first one around that loop, and as you gear up your car into higher and higher gears, you get to roll bigger and bigger dice. You can generate bigger and bigger numbers and get you down the track further and further, except for the curves. You need to stop a certain number of times in each of those curves, which means you want high numbers, but not too high, or you're going to damage your car and potentially crash and wreck yourself right out of the game. The reason I love this is just because those mechanics of being able to gear up and roll bigger and bigger dice, and of the track putting restrictions on that, where it shows where you need to stop and those clear areas of danger, it forces you into a state where it's so clearly just like driving a car at high speed, where you can feel that desire to go faster, but you need to control your pace.
Right. And again, it's that combination of theme and mechanic, and helping that theme pushing you through, which I think leads me to this one, which is CDMC 3000, Chopstick Deathmatch 3000, which I've called is the perfect chopstick game.
And possibly the perfect name.
And we really enjoyed this game. But this to me is the epitome of a different type of use of theme, which is so critical in so many games, which is theme, again, as a shorthand to how you play. Hey, look, here's a bowl with stuff in it, and here's some chopsticks. What do you think you have to do in this game?
I pick stuff up with the chopsticks.
You pick stuff up with the chopsticks. Oh, so suddenly, like, you almost don't have to explain it. I mean, most people are like, oh, am I, like, sorting and picking up colors? It's like, yes. Oh, and in different shapes? Yes. Is it, and it's timed? Like, and that's your chopstick deathmatch, right? Like, and so that theme really helps people pick it up and grok it so quickly, right? And so that's just another great example to me of, hey, how can this theme drive it? This probably started with, I want to make a chopstick game, right? But it's still, from your player perspective, really does serve a purpose.
It kind of communicates exactly what you're doing in the game immediately just by looking at it. It's a game that almost doesn't need a rule book. Right.
And so, to sort of close, and there's countless examples behind us, and we were like pulling things out and putting them back. I'm sorry.
And I think almost every game with a theme succeeds to in this kind of thing in one way or another, to one degree or another. It's pretty rare that you have a game that fails entirely.
Right. And I think for me, because I get really frustrated when people argue over theme versus mechanic and which comes first, the chicken or the egg. The way you need to be thinking about it if you're a game designer and you want to make a fantastic game is, how can they inform each other?
Right.
How do they touch? How do they overlap? And how do they support? How does the theme make the game intuitive to the end user? How does the theme connect an emotion to a mechanic, and how do the mechanics sort of reinforce and drive the thematic thing you're bringing in, and even in a game like Lord of the Rings, Confrontations, where a theme might have baggage you need to address because there's expectations, but it's not about where you start or where you end, it's about where they touch, right? And so that was, hopefully, this is a helpful example of a bunch of those cases. All right, thanks for watching.
See you later.
Bye.